Hey, I'd like to call the Finance Audit Tendering and Administration Committee meeting to order, June the 4th, 12:03. Call order of business, open session number one, called order. We're good, and I'd like to welcome. We have a guest that's going to be part of our agenda here today, the gentleman Kent Thompson. Welcome to the chamber, Kent. Very much looking forward to an update on the procurement bylaw. It's something that this committee and council as a whole has been pressing, and looking very forward to getting some information and advancing this file. So welcome, and look forward to your update. Declarations, number 2, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any?
None here.
Not seeing any. Councillor Bernard, you good? Approval of agenda, number 3, approval of agenda? Yeah, Manager Pino.
Chair, I'd recommend for the committee's consideration to move the agenda item C under discussion reports up to the front of the agenda to give Kent the opportunity to present, and then he can leave after that.
Sure. Is that okay with the committee?
I'll move it.
Deputy Mayor, you fine?
Yes.
Yes, you're fine. Okay. And Councillor Bernard?
Yeah, like I say, I'm good with that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, so 6C becomes 6A, and 6C becomes 6A becomes 6C. Okay, so approval of the previous draft minutes, May 7th, 2025. Are there any discussions or clarifications on those minutes?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Bernard, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you. And are there, number 5, business arising from the minutes? Any questions or business arising from the minutes of May 7th? Not seeing any, hearing any. Okay. So discussions, reports. And we'll go right to report finance, the update on the procurement bylaw. Kent Thompson, our guest, and Lane Pino will take us through the update on the procurement bylaw. Thank you. Go ahead, Lane or Kent, whoever is going to start.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for welcoming me in, too. I think this is a project that, as I said to the chair before the meeting, was that, this was actually the next step that the former CFO and I had talked about doing, is bringing it to the committee and to the council. So really not missing a beat, keep moving this one on. So yeah, I just wanted to go through kind of a little bit about me. I operate under the company called Live Consulting, and then kind of what's been done to date, and then where to from here, and then open up for questions and discussions. So yeah, as I said, I'm Kent Thompson. So I've been a chartered professional accountant since 2011, and I came through under the old legacy CMA program. So a management accountant, really more embedded in organizations than through the firms. So that's included, work in government and nonprofits, and really a lot of experience as, the one running the procurement within an organization. So right now, part of my role with Live Consulting is being the part-time CFO with Castle Inc., which is a bioscience training facility headquartered in Charlottetown. Prior to that, I was the director of finance with Food Island Partnership, and I worked a lot with the city. Actually, during the 2014 celebrations, I was the director of finance and the COO with BEI 2014 Inc. And one of my first roles actually with government, I was with the Department of Agriculture for 5 years. And I worked a lot in the buy local campaigns and working with the procurement division on buying local and how do you change procurement and the policies. And it was really eye-opening kind of how much power is within that policy, because some small changes can really change, what the organization purchases. or changes the other way makes it really restrictive that those things can't happen. So I went out on my own with Live Consulting in January 2024, and started working with the city in September. So I did a review on the finance staff duties before getting onto the procurement bylaw. So really what's been done today really falls under three major categories. The first being research is really starting to, where is the city right now? And started with reviewing the current bylaw, which is PFIN 1, and I think that really is saying a lot. It is the number one financial policy that this department looks after. It kind of lays out how things are purchased, both from a council, how council handles that fiduciary duty, as well as how staff work within to make purchases. And then the transparency to the general public and for the bidders of how do they bid and how does it go through that process. And so when we went through the cities, it's quite short. It hasn't been amended since 2018. And some things have changed since that time. So I think that, the previous CFO had recommended, let's start new. Let's start with, develop a new bylaw. So he provided me with other jurisdictions' procurement bylaws and reviewed, and it really is different depending on the organization. Like I think if one was East Hants, Nova Scotia, it's a very rural in areas. It has, doesn't have quite as large of a finance team. So a lot of the things go directly through the CAO. Where you look at some of the bigger cities in Ontario, and they have a whole procurement team and a division and people that this is all they do. So there's a lot of different details and variety of ways that we could go ahead and develop a new bylaw. And at the same time reviewed Ontario as a guide to developing procurement bylaws, because it really gave those ins and outs and what are things to consider in each section. Because it runs a line from the bylaw side with also the policies and procedures of how do you follow this, how does it implement it, how does it really happen on the ground. So it is that mix between kind of a council and management type of bylaw. Now, there had been a first draft of a bylaw developed by the previous manager of finance. So we use that as the starting point and compared. And so there is a second draft now. But when we went through it, really identified there's some issues and nuances that we wanted some feedback from both council and management of how do we make sure that we're operationalizing this, that we don't just rush through, create a bylaw, pass it through, and then realize, there's issues that 6 months later, there amendments need to be made, or there's other issues that come up, and it's just not possible to do. So I did provide a brief, and I have provided that to Lane of just other issues, and I think there's 12 different issues, and these are things from, how do you report on sustainable procurement? How is there a local preference clause for companies in the Charlottetown area? The purchasing thresholds and the type of purchase. So, a service, a good, and construction, they have different thresholds under trade agreements. And do we want to approach them differently as well? Currently, it really is anything over 25,000 goes to a tender, where, there are different ways we can do that and different thresholds. But wanted to make sure that we got feedback from council, from this committee, and also from management. So, kind of keeping it brief, the where to from here is really getting direction from the committee on the approach, and my preference would be here are some issues, and let's get some feedback. I think my major concern is bringing it 25, 30-page bylaw with all the nuances that it really can get. There can be a lot of debate, or there's a lot of concern, and there's some things, and then it goes back to rewriting it and changing. So try to get it right the first time, and socialize it and work through some of those issues, and then it goes to council after that. And then with management at the same time, I want to make sure that we review it with management. So, suggesting having a steering committee of how do we operationalize this? What does this look like for police, and what does it look like for fire, and what does it look like for all the departments who are really the users, the internal users of the bylaw, and any of those feedback on the potential issues. If there's a reporting piece, is that going to cause a lot of extra work and cost more money than the information provided back? That there's really, the point is, how do we set this up so it works properly as we go through, and it becomes, the new bylaw that quite potentially would be using for the next 20 years in the city. And then once the bylaw is passed, and kind of in tandem, there's the policies and procedures. How does it happen? What are the steps to procurement? What are the steps to notifying people? What are the steps to making amendments and making changes, and how do we do that? And then while we were doing this project, we met with UPEI, and they have a platform for doing procurement, and it can embed the policies and procedures and the bylaw right in it. So for something, I know there was an issue around an amendment recently, is this, everyone would have to log in and create a username, and then they download documents, and anyone that's downloaded those documents would be sent amendment notices, so that they are, regularly notified. If there's parts of an RFP that are mandatory, that it won't let them submit it unless they do that. So it's kind of that, it's the bylaw, the policies, and then the system to put it all together, so that we have that. And then, that third step is the presentation and adoption by council, so it is ready to be operationalized kind of at the same time. So that's all I have. Open for questions or discussion.
No, thank you for that summary, I guess, Kent. I'll just, Councillor Bernard or Deputy Mayor, is there anything in particular that you have a comment or perhaps question on?
I'll go ahead. I'll ask this question because it's unfortunate that his worship isn't here, because this is near and dear to his heart. So I'll ask what I can imagine he might have possibly asked. And what are our timelines?
Yeah, and Lane mentioned that, that was a question. I've been thinking about it. I think that we really need to allow up to a year. And I say that, I'm an accountant, I'm conservative. And because I think we can rush it through in 3 to 6 months, but I also understand there's delays and changes that happen. And if we're going to include an IT system, that is more of a reasonable timeline. I think it's very doable in less than that. But I think that if it's just a rush to push it through and check it off, then we may just not do it right.
Yeah, just as I was listening to your description and, kind of point by point, I was thinking this has a feeling that, your timeline, I guess is, a little surprised. We were hoping, I guess, right or wrong, I don't think probably speak for others. We thought perhaps we might have even been here by now. And that sounds like, based on your kind of framework, that we're not maybe not even close. Anyway, Councillor Bernard, do you have anything you'd like to share or ask?
I do, thank you. Just kind of wondering, one, when this went to Kent, I guess is my first question. Because I thought there was a policy being worked on for the last couple of years. So one, when it doesn't sound like it's been with Kent that long, it's going to take another year.
Yeah, I started on this work in January. So, when I say that, it's probably in that range of 10 to 15 hours a month that I've been working on it since then.
Okay, so was there no work? So the only thing you got previous to that then, Kent, was our previous draft that the former manager did.
Yes, that's right.
So there's been really no work done on it in the last 2 years that we're aware of then. Because I thought it was going to be done in-house, and I know there was some talk about going to a consultant, but I as the others, I believe, had thought that this was already underway in-house the last couple of years because we've been waiting for it. Anyway, I guess it's gone to a consultant now, and so you're basically just getting started at it, really. So, Okay. The other
See-
question I had, then Kent,
Go ahead, Councillor Bernard.
yeah, the other question I had for Kent was, you had mentioned there, Kent, about needing to have a steering committee and a group because this would be somewhat. There's going to be a lot of different departments using it, whether it's the police department, or Parks and Rec department, and so on. Just kind of try to envision that breakdown that you're seeing with the steering committee, and how long you would need a steering committee in place for.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure that it's, that would be working some with the finance team, with Lane and, a new, even CAO and new CFO. Where I see it is the managers at those levels that are actually the one, or the department heads that can, that are going to be using it. And I would like, I'm hearing urgency, so I think that it is kind of, I'd want to move it along. It's not, I think though it's that making sure it's done right rather than it's done quickly. So I'm envisioning it's kind of the department heads, here's the bylaw, do we meet 2 weeks later, what are the issues and how do we work through those as issues?
So I just wonder, and this may be a question for, Kent, you can comment on it, or Lane can comment on it. I'm not sure if Sue is in the room or not. But
Sue is in the room.
Okay, great. So Sue, what I'm kind of wondering is, there was some talk in the past about having Fleet go on its own. And I'm just wondering if the procurement is something that should be under one department. That would probably Fleet, and this would probably report back to finance, I guess. But I'm wondering if that doesn't make more sense, and that there's one person responsible for the procurement bylaw and also the tenders. Usually when you look at Fleet, there's a lot of tenders there, but I wonder if it makes sense to have Fleet its own entity, and they would look after the procurement bylaw and the tendering. Does that make sense to anybody? That way it doesn't seem to be so confusing. There's so many different departments dealing with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bernard. I'm going to ask CAO Sue to chime in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to you, Councillor Bernard. There's a couple of mitigating factors here. I think there was a sense of angst went through the room when our consultant gave us the timelines on this. And I know that we have some immediate needs around procurement that we need to sort on the interim that aren't necessarily waiting on a bylaw, but certainly would be nice to have that in place. And to your point, Councillor Bernard, I think the fact that we have the position of procurement officer officially posted as of today, that person will be our quarterback for getting this down the field, if you will, and working with the consultant so that maybe we can accelerate the path to completion within the next year. And aligning with that, I personally think it's important that procurement resides with our finance department in the corporate division, and that procurement officer, along with fully armed with policy and bylaw, is the one that leads us through any kind of tendering exercises. But my other point that I'd like to make while I have the floor is that we are in desperate need for a better platform from which our companies and providers can launch their bids. And I would like to see us, if we can, try to find a path forward for getting that platform instead of waiting another year or more to have that platform for our bidders, the IT piece, if you will.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you, CAO Sue. Manager Lane.
wondering.
And Chair, through to Councillor Bernard, to answer your question on the Fleet scenario. So I'd foresee, as Sue had mentioned, that finance would still be the central procurement coordinator and run those types of purchases through the system. But to your point, I think probably as part of that process, we would look at, in the scenario of Fleet, have just solely Public Works manage the tenders for the Fleet, so that we ensure that will provide a little bit of efficiency in terms of multiple tenders going out the door and avoiding any of that that confusion. So I think that's something that we need to look at, and IT is an example of that, where we have our IT department coordinating our equipment requirements across the city, whether that be the city or the water and sewer utilities specifically.
Yeah, and I think for me, Lane, and where I'm going with this is, and I know we're getting a little bit off track here, but my understanding is when we're doing fleets and we're doing tenders, and this is what happened with the last one, where when you say under public works, so the fleet manager just looks after trucks for public works. He does the history. Why do we need a new truck? What is the reasoning? Well, that doesn't happen with the other departments. They just put an order in and say we need 2 more trucks, and that's it. To me, it makes sense to have fleet responsible for the fleet of Charlottetown, and that person would be responsible to make sure that if there's a request for a truck or there's a request for whatever part of fleet, what's the rationale for it? Which is not happening now. It's just that it goes through a committee and they say we need a couple of trucks, and then it goes on and the request is made and the fleet manager, the money's going to be put there and the things are ordered. And I think with what happened last time with, the water and sewer looking for 1 truck, and then they wanted 3 trucks, and then Public Works went in and said we're going to order 13, but some of them were Parks and Rec trucks, some of them were Public Works trucks. Then we run into some confusion.
Okay, Councillor Bernard,
To me, that fleet would look after that, and that
thank
could be
you.
part of finance, I would think.
Thank you. Just, Mayor Brown, just before you or go to your question or your comment, and you missed the first part of Kent's presentation, but you probably have heard, he was talking about his
I saw- are the reports.
timeline, and Kent, maybe just have you to summarize.
No, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. No, I just, Mr. Chair, if I can just go back to page 10 of our report, where Kent, I know you don't have access to it, but these are the minutes from the last meeting. And the last issue H, procurement update. There's a full background. Like, we've been getting these reports, and again, I'm not trying to blame anyone. It's 2019. You can ask the deputy. When we came here first, what did we want? A procurement bylaw, because we were all over the map. And then when we get into enterprise fleet management, it was like, no one was staring the vehicle. The procurement bylaw is to put someone in the driver's seat, i.e. a procurement officer, or a manager of finance, or Kent Thompson as procurement officer or leading this project. But I said in the final part of it, I said, Mike, I asked, I want to have, I'm now on page 10. Brown stated that the procurement bylaw is a priority of council. He requested that there be a written report at the next meeting of Finance Committee with a firm outline for the advancement of the procurement bylaw. So you must have been approached after this meeting to come in and to provide some guidance. Is that true? Is that the truth? Okay, so that's what happened. And your timeline, I know, is now just stretching it more than what we've been working on. But Kent, the former controller of our finance department, had a template. There was a template in place. Have you seen that? No, definitely not. Yeah. So and we met with Laura Richard. I know when our former CAO was here, actually the CAO that was here when I arrived, and we brought in Laurie Richard and some members of the, Laurie was representing the procurement office of the provincial government, and there's a procurement act for the province. Like, there's lots of areas that we can, copy, paste, improve, delete. So I'd like to have this done. Your timeline is it a year, did you say, John? Kent, the next year?
Why I say a year is because I'm not sure. And I think that a lot of the process to date really went through the previous CFO. So I was working on Wednesdays and I would come in, and I'd know a couple of days before
Right.
what I was working on.
Right.
So there really wasn't a full, project plan of how do we get to this point.
Right.
So really the next step was here are a couple of issues that we raised. So we developed briefs for those to go to this committee to review and to start to have that review of the draft bylaw.
Right.
Yep. And, you know, I would love to see it be 3 months. As I stated, I'm an accountant, so I'm conservative always, and going to say it's less.
Small C or big C?
Small. but that it is, you know, that these things take time and to make sure they do them right. And I think, you know, I heard CAO Fraser say, you know, how do we do these almost in tandem? So the platform is there, then the bylaw is there as to support it. And hopefully, it's way quicker than I think it may be.
So the deputy and I, well, 6 councillors and myself went to Ottawa for the FCM. And there was a procurement discussion, and Canoe was there. Canoe is a platform that is a baby from the northern Alberta rural communities. And I asked, like, we've used Canoe, and it's a good platform. Then there's another one that we were looking at, Firebox. The university's using it, is it? Or Fire, there's another platform.
Bonfire.
What is it?
Bonfire.
Bonfire. So we got all these tools, and hopefully we can just put something together. I'm just asking, Mr. Chair, like, is it 12 months? Is it 6 months? I'd like to see it between 6 or 12 months, but the sooner the better, Kent. And just give us a template, because all we have, Kent, is a 2-page policy. 2-page, and it has gotten us into so much trouble. And I'm surprised that we have gotten away without being sued by some of the vendors because of what, you know, how we've operated. But look, if you need more tools, I know that this standing committee members, including Councillor Bernard, who's on the phone, will provide more financial resources. Because I know there's money in the CAO budget that you can access, and you might as well get it out before the 13th of June. But just, I really need the help. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Yankoff.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is more of a question for Lane or CAO. Obviously, there was money put aside in the budget for this, but I don't remember seeing the agreement on the timelines, whether it's a stage gate approach for this project plan. I wouldn't mind seeing the contract or the project plan around this procurement bylaw, just so we know where we're going with it. I mean, you've been working on this since January, and I'd love to see, you know, a little bit more detail of where we've been, how we're going to get there, and what it's going to cost us. I don't have a problem with approving more money in the budget, but I'd like to see, you know, because I didn't even know we had a consultant hired. I mean, I knew we had put money aside, but anywho, wouldn't mind seeing that, but that's more of a Lane question, certainly not our consultant. That's not for him to be dithering over.
Thank you. Manager Lane?
Yeah. Chair through to the Deputy Mayor. As Kent had mentioned in his intro, he's been doing a couple of smaller projects up until this point, and just started working on this piece in January. There's not an agreement in place that's specific to the procurement bylaw. It's one of the projects that's in place, but there's no project plan that's defined for this. But I think the next steps for us is to take the feedback here today. And truthfully, I'm just getting up to speed on this file myself as of a couple of days ago here. So I think we need to go back and start to try to map that out in terms of the approach and the timelines connected with that.
Just to follow up.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so thank you for that, Lane. So Chair, I would like to see we've waited this long. I'd like to see some sort of a plan in place before we just say, yeah, go ahead, or so we're not here 6 months from now and we're still working on other projects and this one's not really been even formalized as a plan. I'm not sure what the rest of the committee thinks, but I mean, we can't just be working on things and then putting this in on, as a side hustle. We've been, at this since 2019, so I'm just perplexed that we're here with really no plan, and that's absolutely no disrespect to the gentleman who's been working on other projects that I'm unaware of. So just as chair, if there's, somehow we can formalize this before we start, so that we actually know, and council knows, what the plan is.
Thank you, Deputy. It goes without saying, I think there's been a little bit of a surprise to the committee here as to where we are with the timeline and what's been literally done, and I think that's going to be quite a surprise, perhaps to council when that message gets there. So, two deputy mayors comment and thank the mayor and perhaps the committee support. If we could have, and Lane, as you said, we've had, our CFO that's no longer with us, and you've kind of had this thrown in your lap. If it may not be asking much between perhaps the CAO and yourself, Lane, if we could maybe, and in conjunction with Kent, there can be some kind of report or a bit of a map out that when the information goes to council, that we can, on one hand, give them the perhaps maybe the bad news in terms of where their anticipation may be, but also what the plan is kind of going forward with some projections with timelines. Was that be asking too much? All right.
Mr. Chair, if I could follow up, Kent, it's in the minutes where I did ask, okay? There'll be a written report at the next meeting of Finance Committee with a firm outline for the advancement of the procurement bylaw. So that was requested back in May 7th. And I know that the CFO confirmed that he will take that ask to the CAO, Sue Fraser. Well, as the CAO knows, I spoke to her after the meeting, and I said, this is a priority. So I think the CAO did pass it on to Finance. A report has to be done because that's what they've asked for. So it's been there since May 7th. That's 2025. I can probably go back to 2019 and find other minutes where Philip Brown has asked again and again and again. I think we're really complicating this framework, this legislative framework. Like, we got a procedural bylaw, we're changing it all the time. So I'm just saying, put a framework in place. You have to change it, change it. No big issue.
And no, you are right, Deputy Mayor. You've repeated a couple of times about the timeline and whatever, and then I think the former CAO or CFO was rather than preparing that, wanted to be working on it. In any event, the message I think we're given and hoping it can be responded to is timelines, and the message to council for the next meeting that kind of gives them the good and the bad, I guess, at the same time. Councillor Bernard, you still there?
Yeah, I had the signal up there to speak.
Go
I don't know if
ahead.
you can see it or not. Okay. A couple of things for me, I guess. One, so we've always had a procurement policy in place. And my understanding is back in 2019, we wanted to update it. So it's not like we don't have one. We just wanted it updated. We thought that was started in 2019. Obviously, it isn't. I guess, so we are where we are now. What I'd like to know is, we're not sure of timelines, but what was the agreement made with Kent? I know Kent said he works on it between 10 and 15 hours a month. So what is that the agreement, Kent, moving forward that you're on? It was a 10 to 15 hours per month? Or can this be moved to our priority to get this procurement bylaw up to snuff?
No, I think that this is exactly kind of what I want and what I need is a timeline, as well as kind of the commitment with the managers to kind of work through this, and this makes a lot of sense. No, I'd love to put more time towards it. Do I have a lot? The summer is busy for me, I'll be honest. September gets slower. I run a family business in the summer, so that does take some time, but coming into September definitely can pick it up.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
CAO.
So so the timeline, when you're saying a year, you're saying a year basically, Kent, because you're just not really sure what the outcome is and how much time you're going to have to put into it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Again, I'm just picking, I'm focused on this because if there's one thing I want to check the box off on, this is one of our 10 priorities for bylaws, right? It should be. Like, your max, your max is a year, okay? And let's say your minimum is 3 months. So are we looking in between 3 months and 12 months?
I can't really give an answer without working through a timeline. I
Yeah.
think that, you know, and to make sure that it meets with the organizational ability too, it's somewhere in between there. I just wouldn't, until I have a timeline and work through it, then it's tough to say.
Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor. And Mayor, you still have your mic on?
And if I can, Lane, maybe for our next meeting, we could also get from you just an update, you know, what's been invoiced to date, on various projects, so that we just know, you know, what we've spent already, so that we can give a report to council, understanding that Kent's been doing other work, and so just more so that we're aware of, you know, what's been spent.
Okay, thank you for that. Good discussion. As anyway, some surprises, but anyway, we have to keep advancing it. Thank you for that. Pull my agenda up here. Okay, if we could go to 6B, the report. No, yes, the report on the budget transfer request, St. Peter's Road, Belvedere Avenue, roundabout, Riley Tweel, but I believe Albert is on the line, and
6.8, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
It's a budget adjustment for a vehicle manager.
yeah, yep, yeah, okay, right, sorry about
Rory.
that, yep. Okay,
Great. Thought I missed this one.
yeah, budget transfer request for St. Peter's Road. And Albert, you on the line?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
All right, can you take us through that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chair. So this, we're requesting, we actually aren't requesting a budget transfer anymore. I'm not sure, Lane, if you want to speak on it, but me and Lane had a discussion yesterday, and I don't believe we need a budget transfer any longer. I think we are able to pay this invoice from last year's budget, because it is a 2024 invoice that was missed. So for some history on it, I think this came in last summer, this invoice for Maritime Electric for some work that was done at the Belvedere Roundabout, which construction started in 2022. Usually this work would have been billed directly to the contractor, but I think some discussions must have been had, and for some reason, the invoice came.
No, you're on the wrong item. We're on budget adjustment for vehicle manager 7.1 servers. Rory Chasson. Yes, Senior Information Technology Officer. Albert comes in on B. Yeah. So we're A.
But he's still talking about the right issue. You might as well let him finish.
No,
Can we, yeah, no, if procedurally, if we're fine, can we finish on that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing 7B or 6B?
6C,
6B.
no, B.
Yeah.
Yeah, let Albert finish.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Continue.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so as I was saying, this invoice, I think it just kind of got missed. It came in last summer from Maritime Electric directly to us. Usually it would have been sent through the contractor, and then they would have passed it on as part of their work. There was a budget in the original contract that was awarded for utilities for the Belvedere roundabout. But the contractor never billed us for, and usually that is for Maritime Electric and Bell Alliant and some other ones. So Maritime Electric did send this invoice directly to Public Works, and it's been sitting, I think, on a desk for a little bit, and it got missed. So it was passed along. We got a nice friendly notice from them, and we're just looking to request approval from this committee. It's already gone through Public Works Committee. And Lane, I'm not sure if you want to speak on changing it. We no longer need a budget request for moving the funds from the engineering budget in the 2025 budget. Me and Lane were speaking, and we can bill this to last year's budget in 2024 since it is dated for 2024.
Thank you, Albert. Manager Lane?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So in review of this submission yesterday, I took note of some language in the report which indicated that the invoice that's in question is dated July of 2024. So it's outstanding in Maritime Electric's books and theoretically should be outstanding in our books as well under the 24-25 fiscal year. The transfer request relative to this year, I don't think is valid. We can accrue this back into the previous fiscal year. However, given the dollar amount and given that it was not accounted for in the budget, or it was still, there would still be considered a funding issue in the 24-25 budget year, we still feel it's necessary to bring forward to the Finance Committee and to Council. However, the budget transfer would actually happen between the same two accounts because the engineering account that's identified as where the money would come from, there was an underspend identified in that of last year. I believe that the total budget for that was about $1 million, and there was about $400,000 that was spent out of that. So there is room in last year's budget. So what I'd like the committee to recommend for council is for us to do this transfer, but for the 24-25 fiscal year instead of the current fiscal year.
Well, could I just ask a question? But would the books not be closed? You know, I'm just asking that. And we did approve a resolution at Public Works for this transfer, correct? This did go to Public Works, and there was a transfer because I think Councillor McAleer did ask Riley, who was at the meeting, and Albert phoned in, what's the interest on this? Because it's a Maritime Electric bill, and if you owe them money, there's usually an interest charge. Do you remember asking the question, Mr. Chair? So this was already approved at Public Works for this transfer. So is there anything procedural that we have to do? Is that we have to, I guess, rescind the resolution from the Public Works Committee or just let it fly off into cyberspace?
Oh, sorry, did I?
It was,
Did Deputy Mayor want to go first, or?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bernard.
Yeah, I think Public Works may have been discussed, but I mean, they would just advance that to finance. It's at finance now. I don't think there's anything that has to be rescinded. It's just a recommending body. So come to finance. I guess my question is, when you're requesting it to be paid out of the 24-25 budget, last year's budget cycle, where'd that money come from? Because we're in the 25-26 budget cycle now.
So back through to the chair. So we can accrue the books for the 24-25 fiscal year are still open. there's still an opportunity for us to do accruing entries. So any expenses that we come across that are expenses incurred in the prior year, we can accrue them back. In this instance, the budget for this project in the prior fiscal year was fully utilized, so the funding was not there for that. However, the engineering budget, which is identified in the budget transfer form, if you look back into the 24-25 fiscal year, there were still unallocated funds, still funds unspent. So what I'm recommending is that the budget transfer basically is documented that funds approved in 24-25 for the engineering budget line be used to pay off this invoice back in 24-25.
But then would that not interfere with the 25-26 surplus budget that we started off the year with, surplus from 24? So it's going to impact the 25-26 budget?
Manager Lane?
So one thing to note that this is under capital, right? So this is not an operational item. So with respect to the operating budget surplus, that's part of our operating budget deliberations. It wouldn't impact that.
Oh, okay. I
This
thought you were
would
talking
flow through the
operation.
capital budget side.
Okay, I thought it was.
Deputy Mayor,
Sounded like it's a maritime electric bill. I didn't think it was capital. Okay. Well. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. So just so I get this correctly, for poor Lane with all these historical things he's dealing with, bless your heart. So if I was to understand this correctly, this was a bill that was missed being submitted, so it wasn't entered into the books for last year, and it was just found on a desk somewhere, and a reminder came from Maritime Electric that the bill wasn't paid. So it wasn't like it was entered in the books and not paid. It was unknown to the finance department that it needed to be paid. Okay. So however you need to pay it, I'm good to do that. Whatever works best for you, Elaine, but someone needs to give that man a raise.
Hold on. I want to know the interest. You're like Lori Devine, you don't care about the interest. What's the interest on that bill? Do we
good?
know the interest? Because they would have to charge it, right, Lane?
In normal course, they would. I'll have to defer that question to Albert. I believe it's either him or Riley that has the actual invoice.
Thank you, Lane. Through to the chair and the mayor. I'm not 100% sure on the amount of the interest at this moment. I think there may be some. The amount that you see there is just for the actual payment of the work that was done. So I can reach out to Maritime Electric and see. I think they may have sent some. This is based on the original bill from July 2024. So I will have to see if they sent another one with the interest accrual and where we are for that part. But I wanted to bring this to the table to make sure that we get approval to at least pay off the base amount.
I move it.
Thank you, Albert. Mayor Brown?
I'll move the resolution. Yeah.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Yancock, or Deputy Mayor Yancock. Thank you.
Just before we go,
Yeah.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Barrett?
Well, I want to ask this while Albert's on the line, because I think Albert, the last finance meeting we had, Albert or Riley come in and made a presentation on the 1.5 million money for the sidewalk that was allocated in 24, didn't get transferred over to 2025, and that resolution was going to come to council last month and it didn't. Do we know if that's ready to come to this next meeting in June?
Thank you.
Manager Lane or Albert, which one can answer that?
Thank you, Chair. I think I can take that one through to Councillor Bernard. I think you're speaking on the increase for the additional 1.5 million for the sidewalks. I don't believe that is ready to come to the next, the June 10th the June 10th council meeting. But it hasn't, that being said, it hasn't slowed us down on the tendering process because the sidewalk work for this year, all of those streets that were allocated for 2025 council had already awarded those. So the tendering and design aspect of those is already being done, and it isn't slowing us down, and we could still go out for tender for those without receiving the amount of 1.5 million extra to do them all. Because as I think I've stated, maybe Riley has as well in previous meetings, we still don't know if that 1.5 will cover them all. It is just an estimate. So at the end of the day, until we go out to tender and get construction bids in from contractors, we won't know the true amount because they do vary at times. So we will look at bringing that maybe to the next meeting, either the one later in June or early July, and hopefully by then we have a better update on where we're at with tendering from our engineering consultant for that work and have a better idea of the exact amount we want.
And that will
Thanks.
still give you enough timeline to finish? What's left on that list? The last two are on that list that we're supposed to get done this year?
Thank you, Councillor Bernard. Yeah, I believe so. I think our hope is to still, whether we get council approval to do all of the streets or just the original ones without the extra additional funding, we will be looking to do a similar scope as last year and maybe go out for 2 tenders. So last year, I think going out for 2 tenders, we ended up getting 2 separate contractors, which helped the work get done a little bit faster. So I think we'll be looking to do the same thing and split up the work. I think there's 6 or 7 streets, and we'll try to do them in 2 tenders. Even if it goes to 1 or 2 contractors, usually that will speed things up. And the hope is that they can still get done in the 2025 year.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can still advance here on the agenda. I got my ABCs mixed up. I think I'm on, I think 6C now becomes budget adjustment for vehicle manager servers, Rory Chase, huh?
No, you're on F.
Okay, thank you. Rory.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is for a vehicle manager server. We had that in the budget, in the capital budget last year. It was awarded to a vendor, but they rescinded their offer late in March, so we were unable to award it to anyone else or add it to this year's budget. So we're just looking to add some funds to the capital budget this year to cover that off.
And is there, there dollar number on that?
Yeah, it's $150,000 is our estimate for this year.
Any questions, Mayor Brown?
And I looked at the report, Rory, and it's more about Charlottetown Police Services. That would fall under their budget too, or is this, again, you consolidate it because it's an IT issue?
Yes, through the chair, it is consolidated within IT. It's all
Right.
It's all technology.
Right.
So there's it's all within the IT budget.
And Rory, Mr. Chair, just on this consolidation, we did it at the last meeting for, I think, communications. I thought we were going to have that resolution, or did we already discuss it, to go with a new provider, IT provider? Do you recall that?
Is this for electronic communications?
Yes.
One? Yeah, yes, that's a resolution will be coming from Strategic Priorities Committee.
So it's not ready for today? Okay.
I think I'll let
Yeah, so the chair through to the mayor, we did identify that one as being within budget. So in our new approval process, we didn't require it to come through the finance committee.
Okay, so similar to with what we did on the St. Peter's Roundabout, we identified other existing funding to address that transfer. It didn't require the transfer, is that right? Is it?
Chair through to the mayor, that funding is already in place in our operational budget for that.
Okay, I just want to say this, Mr. Chair, is that, Rory, that's for a 5-year agreement. I know it's not on the agenda, but I thought it was coming up here, and I was going to speak to it. And I did identify that the cell service in that Brighton area, in the Brighton area, is almost null and void or nil. Speaking to someone with the Canadian Telecommunications Association in Ottawa, if we're going with Eastlink, should we not be asking or requesting Eastlink to provide more Wi-Fi service throughout the city?
Through the chair, I mean, we could make that request, but it would be no different from our service with Bell. We would make that same request to Bell, so it's,
And you probably were not here when we signed that last agreement. You were?
no, I
Okay,
was not.
so I'm just asking, with the Bragg Group, I'd like to ask if we could put that out there?
And through the chair, we've already made that request on your behalf, so they're willing to work with us on that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You okay, Councillor Bernard?
Well, I thought there was some issues around, because I remember past Premier Robert Gibbs, I believe he works for the telecom company. And,
He's the CEO.
yeah, I recall there was some issues with cell service down in Brighton, where he happens to live. I thought there was some issues with, I don't know, with cell towers or location of cell towers or what have you. I don't think it was just a matter of putting up some more towers. I think there's another issue there.
No, we don't have the transmitters in that area. I think, I don't know if I sent the link to you, but I could send it to you, Councillor Bernard. But at our Strategic Priorities Communications and Intergovernmental Cooperation Standing Committee meeting, I did bring that up. And I can send you a link to the availability of cell towers in the city. But Mr. Giz did speak to us in Ottawa, and he said, that's a matter of speaking to your provider. And that's why I just wanted to follow up with Rory.
Oh, okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good, Rory? And no more questions? Okay, thank you. 6D update to the committee on operational matters of interest. Lane Pino, Manager Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the standard committee report that we provide every month, which lists all the current tenders that are in motion going through our department right now. As standing items on this report over the next number of months, I'll keep the committee updated in terms of our year end, and our next meeting with MRSB is scheduled for the week of August 4th. I will be honest in saying that with the staffing challenges that we've had and the turnover, there's a lot of work for us to do on year end right now in order to meet our timeline. So we're working towards being in the best position possible for when MRSB comes out to do their field work on August 4th. I also note there the long-term debt. It's time for us to do another tender call for another round of long-term debt to support our capital purchases. So we'll be working on that in the next couple of months as well. And that's all I have, unless there's any other questions from the committee.
Well, thank you, Lane. And Lane, I'd just like to say, pardon the expression, but I guess, you're kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You've got change of personnel, agreeing to step in and act as acting CFO, which we certainly appreciate. And don't despair. Certainly do my best as finance and our committee here, I think, to support and work with you. And I hope, I'm sure, we'll get through this. And CAO Sue's will be great support. We have a new CAO coming on board. I'm excited about, about the changes and moving forward. Mayor Brown, got your light on,
Yes.
as usual?
I never drank from I never drank from a fire hose. It must be quite an experience. But I do want to ask something, Lane. I do appreciate the information you're giving us. I know that some councillors, or maybe all members of council or staff, have received an email from a developer, and it's regarding our budget process. So, Lane, you weren't here in 23-24, but in our 23-24 capital budget, we did set aside $3 million for the Spencer Drive extension. And then in the 24-25 budget, it didn't reappear. And I didn't pick up on it. I don't know if the chair of finance picked up on it, but I'm just asking, and maybe the CAO can address it, but I know that project has the potential to open up a lot of development north of that extended Spencer Drive. So it'll go from Mount Albert Road to the existing Spencer Drive that lies south of the Canadian Tire. So it was in the budget, and then again, look, I try to look at numbers all the time. I missed it, and it didn't show up in 24-25, nor did it show up in 25-26. So I don't know where we can go. Maybe the CAO, or and you don't have the corporate history on it, and I think that the CAO has some background. So could I, if you don't mind, Lane or Mr. Chair, if I could direct that direct that question through you as Councillor McAleer to our acting or interim CAO.
No, yeah, and before CAO speaks to it, there has been communication on the particular point, an issue that the mayor just shared, and certainly, I guess, as chair, I got to perhaps maybe take some ownership. Never caught that, as well. But I know it's been there's been action and some communication on this. But I'll let CAO Sue speak to that in a little more detail, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to you, Your Worship. Certainly, there's been quite a few people included on the email trail on this, and we did just discuss it at a meeting this morning. There's angst in the business community for sure with the developers most impacted by the work happening out off Mount Edward Road. There's a number of developers at play here, and certainly the city has a role to play in quarterbacking all of that at the end of the day. And so when we met about it this morning, we talked about the importance of getting all those parties in the room to talk about how we move this forward. And we collectively did miss out on advancing this project in the current capital year. And so part of the lessons learned for us, I think, was that we need to make sure these get captured. If work isn't done on a given fiscal, we need to make sure that that's represented in the next time around in capital. I don't think any of you can accept any blame for not noticing it wasn't there. We all collectively need to own the fact that that didn't get advanced for this year's capital. And I think another lesson learned going forward is that as far as managing expectations in the business community, when we approve our capital budget right out of the gate, it'd be really helpful if the mayor and yourself as chair took it on the road and presented at the chamber and presented at other key business meetings. This is our capital for this fiscal. However, this might impact you at the end of the day. These are the projects that we're advancing in this fiscal year. And so we're managing expectations on the front end as to what is going to happen, because I think one of our developers got caught off guard on this one, thinking there was money in this year's budget to do Spencer Drive extension. But the good news is we just finished making application for funding to support Spencer Drive expansion, and one of our directors is actively working that file. So that director will also gather up the developers, talk about how we put all this together and get this moving down the road so that it's going to benefit that whole key area of our city.
Thank you, CAO Sue. Councillor Bernard, you still there?
Yes, thank you. And this goes back to, I know during this budget cycle where we were looking to have any projects that weren't approved, that the money would carry over. And I know there's been a lot of discussions about that with the previous CFO, and this is what you run into if you don't carry it over. And that's why I think it's so important. You can't just have a cutoff date and say, okay, the rest is new money. This has been budgeted, and it's been approved, and it's been approved for a project. If that project didn't get going, that money should carry over. And this is what you run into when you don't carry it over. So just a point.
Thank you, Councilor Bernard.
Thank you.
Manager Lane Pino.
Yeah, I'll just comment, Chair, sorry, I'll just comment on that comment by Councillor Bernard, and he's bang on in terms, I think there was some misunderstanding where some of the leadership may assume that automatically carries over. So what we're going to do as part of our process this year is when the department heads are updating their project sheets, they're going to clearly outline of the dollar amount of the cash flow that's being budgeted for the next fiscal year. It's identifying what is deemed to be carryover that was a result of projects not getting spent the year before. And there is also scenarios just to keep in mind where if a manager looks at a project that did not get done and there are funds available to carry over, that they may decide to move that into subsequent years in terms of like further down the road of the 5-year plan. So that can happen as well. But the onus will be on the managers to identify kind of where they are with their projects before year end, what's deemed to be as carryover, and then what the reasonable cash flow is going forward. Thank you.
Thank you,
Perfect. Thank you.
Manager Lane. Yeah, anyway, School of Hard Knocks. It's, anyway, I always can improve on these things. Okay, but it's a big one. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just
Mayor Brown?
Can I just follow up? I think our CAO referred to SHIF, so that's the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund. This would fit into it, and I think we already discussed it. If it wasn't if it wasn't at Public Works, it might have been Deputy Mayor Yankoff. This might have been at Planning, Standing Committee for Planning, that we were looking at applying for the SHIF so that we could look at these projects. And I wanted to add, remember the one down on Queen Street, Dorchester, and King, which is the Bevins Brothers, Bevins development. So yeah, the application is in CAO Fraser, but is there any way for us to put money in the budget for 25-26 to make this project happen, or at least start it? If I could just ask, Mr. Chair?
See the CIO, Sue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to you, Your Worship. As I said, we have just made applications through CHIF for this project, and I don't know what the level of success or the turnaround is on this. I can't really say right now, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't run a parallel course with a request coming back to council to make a new consideration in the current capital, contingent upon getting the funding through CHIF, that we've got money set aside to match it or whatever it is we need to do to make this project a reality. I don't know at the end of the day what the total amount of funds required to do this work, but there's nothing stopping council from earmarking funds in this year's capital to match whatever comes in through federal funding.
And just so I'm clear, you're speaking Spencer Drive?
Correct. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Your Worship.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and CAO Fraser, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. Okay, not seeing any more lights. Councilor
just-
Bernard, you good?
Just,
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think the same thing, what we're talking about here for Spencer Lane, also occurs for the sidewalks that we talked about, the 1.5 million. It's the same situation. And it was missed going through. It was a project that was approved, so I think it's the same thing.
so
Mayor
just,
Brown?
point of order, Mr. Chair. Is it possible to put a resolution here now, or do you want to get our finance department and the CAO get some background information and take it up at the next meeting? I'm just asking for some guidance.
Yeah, just through to you, Your Worship, from the chair.
CAO.
Yes, thank you. I think what we should do as next steps is get a little bit more information on what we're projecting to be the total cost. I don't have that information in front of me right now, so we don't really know at this point what we'd be looking to consider as a new addition to our current capital budget. So if we could have the time to meet with the people working on this file and maybe send an email around to Finance Committee to give you the heads up on what that looks like. And then you can decide as a committee as to what the path forward looks like to consider that in this year's capital. I suspect you'll need another meeting to advance a recommendation, and then the resolution would come to, it would probably, you're not going to get it now till July meeting, but we're not going to hear funding on CHIF before July, not likely.
But Mr. Chair, we could provide narrowed or match funding by a resolution, say, here's what we're putting on the table for this project. And, if CHIF, Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, comes through with, meets more than our expectation, then we get a good price in the project. We may not have to spend everything that we plan to budget on this project. But if I could ask, Mr. Chair, I know the CAO has been doing a great job, and Lane, great job. I just was wondering if it's possible if we can have a roundtable meeting with some of these developers in the next couple of days to explain that and the deputy should be there, members of the committee, the Finance Committee, or members of council that want to be there to have a good roundtable discussion. I think that's what we missed, and I think that was mentioned by the CAO. We should have got out after the capital budget was released to say, here's where the money's going. Is there anything we're missing, or do you
No, Mayor Brown,
provide some money?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No, good. No, I support that 100%. The only caveat I'd make on that is that it'd be good to know for certain just where we stand with the half thing, and that's all, can make it happen.
This is under the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Albert had his hand raised.
Albert?
Had his hand raised.
Okay, Albert.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just raised my hand there, but CAO Fraser kind of spoke on what I was going to say there as well. Public Works has been working with the engineering consultant for the design of Spencer Drive Extension, and I can say that we are over 90% done of the engineering design for that, and we do have some cost estimates, so I can share some of that information along via email. I will just see if we've progressed any further and how ready we are, but I can share some of that information along and work with Lane to bring it at the next meeting and see where we go from there.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Bernard, are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
All right. Going back to the alphabet. Okay. I think we're on number 7, introduction of new business. That's manager, CFO Lane, acting.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a housekeeping item for the committee in terms of, I did circulate an email there yesterday asking if there would be consideration to reschedule our Finance Committee meeting to the following week on the 9th. We didn't hear back from everyone, so I just want to confirm that we're good. Okay, that's great. Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.
You asked Lane and it happened.
All right.
With him there, Mr. Chair.
no.
You want to turn off my light, Mr. Chair?
All right. Number 8. Number 8, adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Put your light on, Mayor Brown. Thank you. All right. With Jen, second with Councilor Deputy Mayor. Thank you.